Modeling Phases and Eclipses. The goal of this lab is model the interactions among Earth, the Moon, and the Sun that cause phases and eclipses to occur. Here are the materials you will need for this lab. 1. Unshaded lamp. 2. Pencil. 3. Small white plastic foam ball. And 4. Your science journal. Safety precautions. 1. Use your oven mitts when handling hot objects. 2. Use caution when handling sharp objects. 3. Use caution when handling electrical cords. 4. Wear safety goggles during all lab activities. And 5. Wear an apron during all lab activities. For this lab, follow these procedures. 1. Turn on a lamp with no shade and place a small white plastic foam ball on the end of a pencil. 2. Stand facing the lamp and hold the white plastic foam ball between your head and the lamp. 3. Slowly move the ball counterclockwise around your head and observe how much of the side of the ball facing you is lighted at different positions. And 4. Note positions where the ball blocks light from the lamp or moves into the shadow cast by your head. Analysis. 1. Describe what happened to the ball as it was moved around your head, and identify the moon phases at various positions. 2. At which positions or phases was the ball blocking the light or falling into shadow? At which phases can eclipses occur? Analyze answers. 1. As the ball moved around a student's head, more or less of the side of the ball facing the student was lighted. The moon phases were new moon, the ball between the student and the light. The other phases followed in order.
Physical Science 29.3. Earth's moon. Tides, moon phases, and eclipses result from interactions between the moon, Earth, and Sun. How do the relative positions of the Sun, the Moon, and Earth cause the Moon's phases? How are the tides on Earth affected by the Moon and the Sun? What is the difference between a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse? And what do surface features of the Moon reveal about its history? It takes 27.3 days for the Moon to revolve once around Earth. Because Earth also revolves around the Sun, it takes more than 2 more days for the Moon to line up with Earth and the Sun. A complete lunar phase cycle takes 29.5 days, also called a synodic month. The Moon keeps the same side facing Earth because it takes 27.3 days to rotate once on its axis. A tide is the rise or fall in the ocean surface produced by the gravitational pulls of the Sun and the Moon. This rise of sea level is called high tide. About 6 hours later, as the trough of the wave approaches, sea level drops, causing a low tide. The Sun is much farther away from the Earth than the Moon. Because of this, the Moon has greater effect on Earth's tides than the Sun. When the Moon and the Sun pull together, high tides are much higher and low tides are much lower. This is called a spring tide.
Moon phases are the illuminated fractions of the Moon's disk as seen from Earth. The amount of the Moon's surface that looks bright to observers on Earth changes during a complete cycle of the Moon's phases.
Moon phases reflect the change in appearance of the Moon as seen from Earth. The phase you see depends on the positions of the Moon, Earth, and the Sun relative to one another. A new moon occurs when the Moon is between Earth and the Sun. The side of the Moon facing away from Earth is lighted, and the side of the Moon facing Earth receives no sunlight. Waxing is the illuminated portion that we see that appears larger each night. The first phase we see after a new moon is called the waxing crescent. About a week after a new moon is the first quarter moon. The Moon is in the waxing gibbous phase from the first quarter up until the full moon. After a full moon, the illuminated portion that we see begins to appear smaller. The phases are said to be waning. When only half of the side of the moon facing Earth is lighted, the third quarter phase occurs. The waning crescent occurs before another new moon. Now, waxing and waning seem to be really hard for people to understand, and honest to goodness, it was hard for me. But analogies are great things. So since we started our year with an analogy, I'm going to end your year with an analogy. The old way of saying my love for you is faded or I'm not in love with you anymore was to say my feelings about you have waned. Or how about Karate Kid? Wax on, wax off. When he waxed on, he was putting on a high shine on the car, right? He was putting a bunch of wax on there to make that old car real shiny. And when he waxed off, or when he waned a little bit on the wax, he was wiping it off. So as the moon becomes brighter and starts appearing more, it's waxing. And as it starts to disappear, quote unquote, it is waning. The word month is derived from the same root word as moon. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon moves directly between the sun and Earth and casts a shadow on part of the Earth. The darkest portion of the moon's shadow is called the umbra. When Earth's shadow falls on the moon, a lunar eclipse occurs. A partial lunar eclipse occurs when only a portion of the moon moves into Earth's umbra. Many depressions on the moon were formed by meteorites, asteroids, and comets, which strike the surfaces of planets and their satellites. These depressions are called craters. Maria are the dark-colored, lava-filled flat regions on the moon's surface. Surrounding the large depressions that later filled with lava are areas that were thrown upward in the original collision and formed mountains. Impacts on the moon throughout its history led to the accumulation of a layer of dusty lunar material called a regolith. This model shows that the moon's crust is about 65 kilometers thick on the side facing Earth and about 150 kilometers thick on the side facing away. The mantle is solid, composed of dense iron and magnesium-rich rock. Below this is an iron-rich solid core. Data from the Clementine spacecraft confirmed that the crust on the side facing Earth is much thinner than on the far side. Clementine also provided information on the material content of the moon rocks. The Lunar Prospector spacecraft orbited the moon, taking photographs of the lunar surface. Lunar Prospector confirmed that the moon has a small iron-rich core about 1,600 kilometers in diameter. Lunar Prospector also collected evidence that supports the presence of water ice on the moon. In 2009, NASA's Robotic Lunar Exploration Program launched the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter to map the moon's surface. The moon formed about 4.6 billion years ago when a Mars-sized object collided with Earth. After colliding, the cores of the two bodies combined and settled toward the center of the larger object. Gas and other debris were thrown into orbit. The remainder condensed into a large mass, forming the moon.
Bye.